Hello and a very warm welcome. I'm Sravasti Dasgupta and you're watching the Wire Wrap. Two chief ministers from southern India, Chandrababu Naidu in Andhra Pradesh and MK Stalin in Tamil Nadu, have urged people to have more children, highlighting the demographic challenges that the two states are facing. In Jammu and Kashmir, another army vehicle has come under attack in which at least four people, including two army soldiers, have been killed yesterday. And elections are also due to take place in the next few weeks in Jharkhand and Maharashtra. To discuss all these developments, we have with us today Ajoy Ashirwad. He's political editor at The Wire, and Vinod Sharma. He's a senior journalist. Thank you so much for joining us on The Wire Wrap. Let's get started with the fact that two chief ministers in southern India, Chandrababu Naidu and MK Stalin, have now urged people to have more children, and they have, in a sense, sounded the alarm on a demographic crisis that is developing in these two states due to a shrinking TFR, which is the total fertility rate. And he's highlighted the fact that these states have a lower population than in northern India and have urged people to have more children. Ajoy, how do you see these remarks? Are these to be seen in the light of a shrinking workforce and slower economic growth and perhaps even reduced representation in parliament, or is it a matter of devolution of taxes?
Yeah, so also, Shravasti, this aging population is a big problem, not just in southern India, but across the world. Recently, when had gone to visit Singapore, their government's primary thinking is how to kind of uh, have uh, have families to kind of have more children because they think that in another 2 or 3 years almost 60% of the population would be 60 or more, and that would kind of uh, uh, lead us lead them to a problem of a shrinking workforce. So that's a real problem which Naidu is actually kind of saying. But I am also looking at it a little differently because it is coming at a time when we have seen the southern states uh, agitating in Delhi and in their respective states against devolution of taxes, which they feel that they are not getting their due despite contributing a lot. So all these southern states have much better development indices than their northern counterparts, and they have been kind of feeling that they are not getting a good deal from the center. So this had happened, and then there is this imminent delimitation which will happen in a few years after the census takes place. So which if which the and that is, I also think that Naidu has those things in mind which can kind of affect his political prospects, or generally in terms of, so he is trying to look at it in those ways also, I think. So let's see how it pans out. But because it is coming from Naidu, and he is currently in the NDA and Modi government's ally. So how this equation between them, because this is something which, if this kind of takes a shape of how Karnataka or Kerala were responding to devolution of taxes in the center, against the center. If Naidu does the same thing, so there will be friction between Modi and Naidu. Let's see how it pans out.
Vinodji, how do you see this? The fact is, as Ajoy was mentioning, that Naidu is, of course, part of the NDA, but a similar call has been made by Stalin, who is part of the India alliance. So it's a similar pitch from in a two opposite camps, and the idea is. They are saying that it's about the aging population and demographic changes and economic challenges and all of that. But do you see this as a political clarion call, or do you see it as a real challenge in terms of economy and demography? And
You see, these chief ministers everywhere, especially in South India. See, South compared to North is more disciplined people there. Governance is better. Populations have been limited. And that is why, and education is better spread in southern states. So, wherever education is better spread, and it is empirically proved, families get smaller,
Yes.
they don't get bigger. And I think because of that high level of education, and perhaps consciousness, public consciousness, to this challenge of burgeoning population growth, that people have planned their families better in the southern states. Unfortunately, in states which are lagging behind, laggard states, so to say, or I don't want to use the word bimaru, which is not proper, but these states where every additional child is perceived to be an additional earning hand.
Yes.
So every state has its own challenges and causes of concern. Naidu's immediate, I think, worry would be that census hasn't happened since 2011, and it is due. And based on census, based on population, you will get the number of seats that you have in parliament. Now, these regional parties, their strength lies in their legislative strength. Besides their strength on the ground, their legislative strength is a crucial factor in determining their politics or their importance nationally. And I'm not surprised that Naidu and Stalin have raised this issue. I wouldn't be surprised if this demand comes from Karnataka as also from Kerala. These southern states, and they will have robust, solid arguments uh, uh, to push their case. It's not that हमारे साथ अन्याय हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है. They have figures to bank upon. I remember that the former finance minister of Tamil Nadu, who was pretty bright, but he was, due to some internal DMK politics, that he was removed and sent to some other ministry. I mean, he was such a confident minister that even the central minister had no answers to what he used to say. So this is a serious challenge, and this is not that they can brush it under the carpet. They'll have to address this because the Bharatiya Janata Party, though it gets its core support base in the north, Bharatiya Janata Party needs some additional cerebral content to its politics, and that won't come without support from the southern
Southern.
states.
But I think apart, as Vinodji is saying, that of course there's an electoral and political reason behind all of this. But as experts who work in the field of population have also pointed out that it's not just as simple as telling families to have more children. It's also, as you were saying, that in Singapore also people are being urged to have more children. But across the world, we have seen in countries where the TFR is declining, whether
China
it's
is the latest.
yeah, or South Korea, which has the lowest fertility rate at the moment. People are choosing not to have children for a variety of reasons, which comes down to the kind of support system that is available, the child support care that is there. Women are not choosing to have children not just because they want to have a good career, but also because of the financial aspect and the support system that is in place. So it's not that India can become Sweden tomorrow. So instead of pushing people to kind of have more children, should governments perhaps not focus on getting these systems in place?
So yeah, with respect to Naidu, I'm sure that he must be thinking along these lines also what he has done. Of course, the government, all governments will have to step forward to create a support system in which families can have more children and raise them well. So what Vinodji was also saying, that children in underdeveloped states, they think of more children as more working hands, which is not the case for uh, in developed nations, where they want to, the education levels are so high, they want to educate their children. They have to contend with this really back-breaking price rise across. So all of these needs to be thought about. What Naidu has in fact started with is he's introduced a bill in the assembly, withdrawing the two-child policy for candidates. They had a rule where candidates with more than two children could not contest local elections, so he's withdrawn that rule now. Probably, if he keeps continuing this uh, rhetoric or this debate, then he will have to think along many lines where he can address these problems and where people are truly encouraged to have more children. But I would like to kind of get his intervention on, because Naidu, given the record, his record, he's always saying something and thinking something else. Do you see
Mm,
something like that? He is known
no,
for
no,
his
but you
shrewdness.
see, here is
Yes.
a man who's
Yeah.
taken seriously
Yeah.
always as one who's focused on development.
Yes.
He caters to the aspirational class
Hmm.
besides the popular base of the
Hmm.
party. And he has almost salvaged his reputation from the brink.
Hmm.
He was tottering on the precipice.
Yes.
And I had a feeling at times that this was the end of his political career. But
Hmm.
here you have him. He's back into business.
Hmm.
I've known him for many years, ever since he came here to become the convener of the United
United
Front
Front.
government in the 90s. And we have known him since then, most of us, my generation. He is very focused on development. And at the same time, when he joined this NDA
NDA.
alliance, many people were saying that it is a fragile alliance, this won't last and all that. So I used to tell those people that if you count on your fingertips serious political allies, then he is one of them.
He is one of them.
You see, DMK is a serious political ally. ADMK never was. Jayalalitha was never a serious political ally. Neither was Mamata Banerjee. I
Hmm.
mean, if you get out of your bed in a bad mood in a morning, in one morning, uh, they could bring down the government. I mean,
Yes.
that was the kind of unpredictability, a very volatile temperament. You see, that doesn't work in coalition politics. So he will, because he is supporting the government and his support for the government is crucial. His priority number one is to get for Andhra Pradesh enough funds and opportunities to place it at par with Telangana, because the bifurcation of the state took away very productive parts of Andhra Pradesh, and they were severed and they were taken away, like it has happened in the case of Bihar and Jharkhand. The Jharkhand is a mineral-rich area of that state, so he will uh, ask for his pound of flesh, so to speak. Maybe not uh, in a manner that it comes across as seeking a pound of flesh, but he has his ways with carrying people along, and he has worked with, for instance, such in a very difficult, complex coalition. He worked United Front, but that coalition fell not because of him; it fell because of the Congress Party.
Congress Party.
So I think that he has had his tour of various political destinations in
Hmm.
order to meet his ambitions. And now is the time for him to leave behind a legacy in terms of development in Andhra Pradesh. You see, I remember when Prime Minister Modi was called and was invited when he was Prime Minister, CM the previous time, and he was called to Amravati to lay the foundation stone. Naidu made a very pertinent and very savvy point. And I thought that it made a lot of sense to all of us who were listening to him. He said every single southern state today has a revenue generating center, bar Andhra Pradesh. We had one, we created one, but it has gone away to Telangana. So he had a very strong case for getting good special allocations from the center for that extra push that he needed to create a new capital there and to sort of what to say, to sort of lay a strong basis for the finances in that state. He has this golden opportunity now, and he's going to do it whichever way it takes.
Yes.
And so I don't think that there is just these are off the cuff demands, knee jerk reactions. No, these are thought through, and he has a set of advisors who do the research and all the data collection for him. He, after all, I mean, whatever you may think of him, didn't he place Hyderabad at par with Bengaluru in the digital sector?
Yes, it did.
He did it. So he has a record to prove his worth. And Modi ji may not have taken him seriously earlier.
But now he has to.
Now he has to, out of compulsion, not out of admiration.
Yeah, so we'll have to keep our eyes on all these developments and how the other southern states manage to kind of capitalize on Naidu's moves to get their pound of flesh in the tax devolution as well as electorally and politically. But in other news from Jammu and Kashmir, just days after the new Omar Abdullah government took charge, there has been a spate of attacks, including on civilians. There have been at least 3 attacks in this week alone. Just yesterday, 4 people were killed, including 2 army soldiers as well as 2 porters. Earlier on Sunday, in another major attack, 7 people, including a Kashmiri doctor, was killed at a base camp of a construction company in Gandarbal district. And this was the first major attack on civilians since June, when a bus carrying pilgrims was targeted in Resi, in which at least 9 civilians were killed. So the spectre of terror once again raising its head. We know Omar Abdullah was just in Delhi. He met Home Minister Amit Shah. He also met Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. So it's a new challenge that has come up in front of his government, concerning for his new government, since he's just taken oath, and in this 1 week since that, so many attacks have taken place.
For sure, all these have come right uh, after Omar Abdullah also declared in many of his interviews after winning that they would like to kind of work with the center for the development of Kashmir, and he was which was like a state or union territory now which has not had a elected government for 10 years, which was like quite uh, prudent of him to declare his intention to work with the center despite being in the opposition camp. But what it reminds me is this autumn of 2021, similar spate of attacks also happened, and this is autumn of 2024, and again those things have happened. So to me, it's like this completely rubbishes the claim of Prime Minister Modi, Union Minister, Home Minister Amit Shah, who constantly claimed that Kashmir is out of the terror networks have been contained in Kashmir, and there have been no such kind of like major incidents of militancy. But every time they declare these kind of huge, they claim such big things about Kashmir, and we see that these kind of attacks happen. And this time, it's a really concerning thing that migrant workers who are in Kashmir, they are also being targeted. So something along the lines, because such incidents, the militants generally attacked security forces and did all those things, but this time they are going after laborers who come from outside, and there may be, I'm not sure about it, but there may be a rising growing sentiment in Kashmir, because the whole claim of the center is now that Kashmir does not have that constitutional autonomy, and everyone in India can go buy land. This is the right wing campaign, right? And there is a huge infrastructure push from people who are not Kashmiris, from companies who are within the network of the Modi government. So there is like maybe a growing sentiment among people of Kashmir that their own resources is being kind of almost handed over to people from outside, and people from other Indian states are coming there to kind of take away their jobs. We have seen similar trends in Assam. We have anywhere which has kind of conflict prone state. These sentiments have a very like kind of fast way to become much bigger issues. So if the militants are picking this sentiment among Kashmiris that okay, these are people from outside are coming and taking away your resources, so they may be seeking legitimacy for these attacks also, which will be a great challenge for the center and for especially India, where such like anti-immigrant feeling is constantly growing. And in Kashmir, it can take a very, very monstrous shape given its history.
Yeah, as you were mentioning, since the
Yeah.
reading down of Article 370, this has been a fact that the center has been claiming that terror attacks have been going down. But Vinodji, we have seen that there's been a worrying rise, of course, as we are mentioning. But the fact is that the Omar Abdullah government, immediately after coming to power and before that as well, during the elections, made this promise of statehood that they would work with the center to find a kind of timeline towards statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. The center has not been committed towards that in the sense that they have not given a timeline, but they have said it will happen. So, will these terror attacks kind of complicate the path towards statehood? Can it now allow the center to say that no, you're not ready to get statehood because law and order is in the center's hands?
Until the elections happened, and for a long, long period, the BJP's approach to Kashmir was a militarist approach. And people who know Kashmir, and I know a bit of it, they always argued that there has to be a political solution to this. Whether it's a cross border political solution or within India, we can debate that. Because I personally feel that there is a sea change today in the ground situation than it was when Benazir Bhutto was the rising star and elections were being rigged in Kashmir in India. So she was the face of democracy in South Asia on the rise, and she was a very charismatic leader. And the people of Kashmir had a section of them had an inclination to look at Pakistan and maybe feel a bit envious that they didn't have much of what they were having, the other side. But that has proved to be a short-lived dream. The fact is that Pakistan doesn't hold the trump card anymore. But at the same time, just to wish it away from this equation is not politically wise. It's very difficult for the BJP to agree to the idea of a dialogue on Kashmir with Pakistan. I don't think they are too resolute in not accommodating Pakistan or having a dialogue with Pakistan on Kashmir. But things change. The fact is that in this world, we are seeing people engaging with the Taliban as well. And there were clear linkages between Kashmir and Afghanistan, and it was being used by the Pakistanis. That Afghani groups were being used by Pakistanis to create ferment in our part of Kashmir. I think that this issue of Kashmir needs a serious discussion and debate that should involve all political parties towards evolving a national consensus on how to handle it henceforth. Now, for that, the center would need to be accommodative and the opposition would need to be sensitive to the whole issue at stake. I wonder whether it can happen today in our very divided, very fragmented polity. But that is the need of the day. That is the need of the hour. You are talking about that, Gandarbal is one of the seats from where Omar Abdullah contested and won. And that is the place where it all began. I mean, this latest terrorist strike has happened. In Jammu, there is fear of 370 is not a very popular thing in Jammu also. But the fact is that 370 is now fait accompli. It can't be just erased,
Wished away. Yeah.
wished away. So you have to live with it. And you have to live with it gracefully and creatively. How that will be done, I do not know. But today is the national duty of every political party to make the NC government successful in Kashmir. For the simple reason, and that is perhaps for that reason, that the Congress has not become part of the government because they have differences with them on the question of uh, mm, reviving the 370 provision. Matlab having it the status quo ante, having the status quo ante there. It is big sloganeering time is over. Now it's time to get down to the desk and to plan it. At the same time, the promise that the Lieutenant Governor has made of being cooperative with the new government, that it would not be. When it came to power, I mean, I was guilty of calling it a municipality which has been elected. It is, in fact, a municipality which has been elected. And that government is no more powerful, the state government, which people there have elected, than the government we have in Delhi, where the powers of the lieutenant governor supersede those of the elected assembly and the chief minister. So I think that the lieutenant governor will have to be very cautious in dealing with the issues there, and the statehood must be restored at the earliest possible. Now, these attempts by powers from across the border, in my view, and I may be wrong, are meant to scuttle statehood for the time being, delay it at least.
And that's kind of the point that Farooq Abdullah is raising today. He said that we need to resume talks with Pakistan, and there are attempts from across the border to perhaps these attacks that come after elections, they always kind of rise after the elections, and there is a need to have conversations and dialogue. But the fact is that law and order still remains with the center. So, how will the two governments really handle it? Because, as Vinod ji is pointing out, that this government does not really have the powers that any other elected state government has. So how this is a huge matter of concern, and do you see this coming as a problem in coming
Actually,
days?
this is the defeat not of the
They,
government.
they,
It is of the lieutenant governor there.
yes, center's representative. So every time, so what Vinodji also said, that government, the center has always had a very militaristic approach towards how to handle Jammu and Kashmir especially. So what? So the owners of all these, every time there have been such attacks, the BJP especially, they have put the blame on the powers in Kashmir. But this time it doesn't have that option. All these things are the trends remain the same. All these big talk about containing terrorism in Kashmir hasn't really kind of shown itself to be true. And also what has happened is they need to be accommodative. They cannot do with a entirely singularly militaristic approach, especially that it's a union territory now, and they have to deal with all the security threats directly. But all these areas also, they reflect very poorly of the security machinery of the center. They claim themselves to be like really, and they're being questioned by what it has been allegedly up to in Canada and the US. But what it here it shows abject failure of the security machinery to kind of receive credible intelligence about these threats. And it's the
No,
fourth attack in 3 days. So yeah.
one thing I want to say here.
Mhm.
I'm always very cautious when I discuss Kashmir,
Mhm.
for the simple reason that having followed that state for so long, and not just from here, but also from across the border in Pakistan, I used to watch from there in the early 90s uh, when Pakistan used to tell us that there wouldn't be any talks unless you create a climate which is suited for a dialogue.
Mhm.
It was our advice used to come from Pakistan. We have traveled a long distance from there. Surely, certain things which we have done were right, and certain things, of course, we have done maybe not all that right. In my personal view, the first step should be to give the people of Kashmir the statehood they deserve, because you have You have truncated that beautiful state. You truncated it into three. At least join up the two parts of it. और लोग कहते हैं ना कि भारत का मुकट है, मुकट।
Mm.
ये मुकट है जो भारत का, ये टूटा हुआ तो नहीं हो सकता ना। इट कांट बी अ ब्रोकन क्राउन। So everybody should get together and put this back in shape. And once that happens, once statehood happens, I think that we would be in a better position. Let diplomacy come into play rather than army military.
Yes.
And if Nawaz Sharif, who is an ethnic Kashmiri and raised in Punjab, and that used to be his USP in for being the best politician available in Pakistan to address the Kashmir question. And ethnic Kashmiri raised and brought up and raised in Punjab. So he addressed both the qualifications. Let's see, but there too, the Sharif brothers are not all that powerful. They are not all that, their writ doesn't run the way it used to run once upon a time. So, and whether they are willing to steadily stick their neck out. So, I think that we shouldn't jump to conclusions. And surely, these incidents are disheartening and they are very disconcerting. But I would stop short of saying that it is back to where we started. No, it's not back to where we started. But surely there is a grave danger, clear and present danger of a slide happening if we don't address these questions.
And of course, there's an opportunity for the new government to work with the center. We know
Mm.
a foreign minister, S. Jaishankar, has just visited Pakistan. So opportunities are open and present. And how they really work together is going to be seen in the coming days. But before we wrap up, we also want to talk about the upcoming elections in Maharashtra and Jharkhand. Now, this is due in November, in just a couple of weeks. And right now, seat sharing deals are being sealed across party lines. We have in Jharkhand, the India Alliance includes the JM, the Congress, as well as the CPIML and the RJD. And on the other side is the BJP and a few other parties. In Maharashtra, it's more of a complicated situation because there are parties that have truncated, that have split. Now they are fighting after the Lok Sabha elections. They are fighting once again against each other. Symbols are a big concern. Let's start with Maharashtra. All eyes have, as Vinodji was saying earlier, all eyes have been on the Mahavikas Aghadi and how they are planning their seat sharing. They've decided 85 seats each between the Congress, the Shiv Sena, Uddhav Bal Thackeray, and NCP Sharad Pawar. But not much is being spoken of the Mahayuti, even though the BJP has taken out a primary list and so has the NCP. But what is your sense in the seat sharing agreements that's coming from both camps and the lack of focus on what the Mahayuti is happening?
Sravasti, like we do so many elections here. I've seen so many elections, and every election is the same story where seat sharing uh, gets into some kind of trouble when there is an alliance. And it's perfectly natural in a democracy, electoral democracy, that when parties come together, they will try and bargain for the best for their party, because they are just not answerable to uh, they are answerable to their party workers, their ticket aspirants in their parties. But now is a time when it's not just, it's only the opposition's problem which faces such kind of problem, but also the ruling parties, in this case Mahayuti. And in Jharkhand, the BJP also has, we saw recently how in Haryana they landed into so much of trouble, the BJP, and there were so many rebellions when the tickets were being distributed. But all said and done, BJP has a very strong high command right now and has been able to kind of contain these rebellions and generally go ahead with its whatever political narrative that it kind of deploys at that time. So I feel that the opposition parties, they could have done well by kind of having these kind of talks and not come out in the public and say many things that they have said. So that creates like poorer optics for them. I think that Mahavikas Agadi, which is the opposition alliance there, they had a very good political narrative in Maharashtra going for them, and suddenly these kind of talks have shown them in some kind of that not everything is well in the coalition. So I think this is the time when the opposition should stick to its political narrative, and that is what will give them an advantage, rather than coming out and speaking against each other. These things are perfectly, like, for me, like really routine affairs when people are fighting over ticket, but those things will be sorted out by today or tomorrow in all the, and they will, and they will get to the campaign. So it's a very good time to kind of stick to the political narrative that the opposition has, because what the ruling party is facing huge anger and huge anti incumbency there. And despite all of these kind of trying steps that the Eknath Shinde government has taken to control the damage, I think they are in for a very tough run. So it depends on how opposition kind of takes control of the situation and fights well. Similarly, in Jharkhand also, I think Jharkhand, there's few seats, like all the seats have already been decided, but like last 11 seats, and they ran into some kind of, there are multiple claimants, and that's why those things need to be talked out, and those things will settle. Eventually, someone will be there, and once these tickets have come, there are ground level resistance from rebels, but all those things seem to be flattening out by the time polling comes. So the current news will not be news in another 5 days, and people will start talking about what are these groupings, political groupings speaking about, what are they promising, and those things will be issued. Let's see how it goes from here.
In Jharkhand, the BJP has seen some desertions in since its first list came out. They have joined the JAM. In Maharashtra, it's more of a fight over symbols and what the alliance equation that is being developed over there. The Congress and its allies in Maharashtra want to kind of build on their momentum in the Lok Sabha elections, but they have all agreed to 85 seats each for now. They can, of course, add to it later. So, how do you see these
It's a
developments?
major development.
Yeah,
85 seats each
yeah, it's an equal
for
footing.
for an alliance where there was a kind of a tussle to show individual parties trying to show themselves as more important in this equation. But the Congress agreeing to 85 formal announcement and leaving the rest to negotiations later, I think is a major forward movement, because uh, that that puts their fears at rest, that Congress may play the big brother.
Mm.
And now nobody is asking for projection as CM. Shiv Sena is not asking, NCP is not asking, Congress is not claiming. So I think that insofar as the opposition alliance is concerned, this is a major step forward. Insofar as the ultimate results and the nitty gritty of the seat sharing, well, I have seen some of the best psephologists in this country coming to grief.
But do you think it's a learning from Haryana that Congress is playing cautious
You
in
see,
Maharashtra?
political parties don't learn. Even if they learn, their leadership learns. The individual leaders don't learn. And Congress, in my view, has turned it into a habit, living dangerously, and so dangerously that at times falling on its own sword. Which it did in Haryana.
Amen.
So I wish that they are more cautious this time. I wish that there is better coordination this time. I wish that the resources are judiciously spent. BJP fancies itself as a great election fighting machine. No machine works without lubricants. And when I talk about lubricants, I am talking about the gravy train. So they are able to prop up rebel candidatures. They are able to divide the vote that should normally be going to the opposition by setting up candidates. I have personal information about at least one seat where 6 crores were given to the rebel candidate on the promise that you will spend all this money and you will be campaigning very vigorously. And if you get, the number was assigned, more than this number of votes, regardless of the outcome, we'll compensate you.
Incentivizing rebellion.
There's no incentivizing, no. it is sponsoring, funding. So these are the kind of logistics that make some rightful winners lose elections. And Congress should know that the nature of the beast that it is facing, and they normally, uh, I frankly I may be wrong, and I wish I am wrong. That I think that their nominees from the high command and their high commands at times, it it has no eye for detail. That eye for detail it has to develop.
Yes.
And if it can develop that eye for detail, then it will be the cynosure of all eyes.
Detail is what makes the election machine that much doubted.
All right, so we'll have to keep our eyes on all those developments. Of course, in the coming weeks, we will be tracking all the election moves in both camps, in both Maharashtra and Jharkhand, and as well as other political developments that take place in the country. Thank you so much, Ajoy and Vinodji, for joining us, and to the viewers for watching.